Rev up your engines! Sean Stanford said, what's the fastest car you've ever had? Well, I'm too cheap to buy really fast cars, but for a week I had a 2013 Shelby Cobra GT500, 6-speed tranny, 666 horsepower, wheel and blower on it. That thing was insane. Went 202 miles an hour on a racetrack. That thing was insane. But then again, even driving it on the street, I only got 3 miles a gallon. That's one reason I don't buy a car like that. You can go really fast on motorcycles and they'll still get 20, 25 miles a gallon. Not in a fast car though. It was fun though, and for the price, they were selling them back then for like $58,000, which isn't that bad for a car that goes that fast. You get a car that goes 200 miles an hour. Most of the other cars, they're 200, 300, 400. JC 204X says, Scotty, I'm getting the 2004 Nissan Altima and a 2004 Honda Civic as part payment. It's owed to me. Is there anything I should watch out for? As for the Nissan Altima, change the oil, make it look good. Sell it as fast as you can. Those aren't the greatest cars in the world. That was after Nissan was bought by the French company Renault. Not the greatest vehicle in the world. Now the Honda Civic, 2004 Civic, could last forever. Those are really well-made vehicles. Check it out, make sure everything works on it. Keep the Honda, but get rid of the Altima. Or if you want to make money, the guy owed you money, you don't want the cars, you could get some good money for the Civic if it's in good shape. Detail it, get it all shiny, change the oil, get it all nice, and then sell it. You can get some decent money for that if you want money. But if you want to keep them, get rid of the Nissan and keep the Honda Civic. Lewis says, Scotty, help. Why does my steering wheel shake uncontrollably when I drive over a bump or hit potholes? I also hear clunks. Lexus ES350, 2012. 9 times out of 10, it means you need new struts. It's old enough, you know, the struts wear out, and don't buy cheap struts. Although, all things said, those KYB Japanese struts, they're fine. You have to go to the dealer and buy outrageously expensive ones. You can use KYB. I got KYBs in my wife's Lexus and they work perfectly fine. They're great struts, but that's generally the problem when you have those. It bumps. They don't absorb it right, so it shakes. But of course, before you do anything, watch my video. Check out your own car's suspension system, Scotty. Watch that. And it'll show you can jack it up, pull on the wheels. You could have a bend, ball joint, tie rod, and you can easily check that stuff yourself. Odds are, though, it needs new struts. Start with the front ones. You might not change the back ones. If it's a steering wheel check, you might be able to get away with just changing the front ones. Most of the weight of that car is in the front. The engine and transmission is in the front, so the front ones have more stress and they wear out faster. March 1274 says, what do you think of a 2012 Ford Fusion with a 2.5 four-cylinder engine for first car for my daughter? Well, the Fusions weren't bad cars. The Focuses were absolute garbage, but the Fusions are pretty good cars. If you could get a good price on it, my neighbor had one, he had it for years and he loved it. They're not bad cars. You might just think about buying it if you get a good price. Now realize they don't make them anymore. It's a 9-year-old car, so try to get the best price you possibly can for the thing, but it can be a pretty good car, especially because they're bigger, they're safer, their airbag systems work. It might not be a bad idea for your daughter. Ice Cube said, ever had a problem to solve an issue as a mechanic that you struggled to fix? Well, of course, because the way they're designing modern cars, in the olden days it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, my grandfather was a mechanic. We fixed cars with sledgehammers, screwdrivers. We didn't have sensing machines. We'd put our head on a giant screwdriver and stick it on the engine to hear what the noise is. They were much simpler vehicles. They didn't have all the complexity of a modern car. The problem with modern cars are computers running everything. Some Mercedes have over 100 separate little computer modules, and you try to figure out when something goes wrong with them because they make a mistake when one thing goes bad. Main computer tries to compensate for it, and then that trips something else, and something as simple as one bad sensor could trip 15 different codes. So yeah, modern cars can be a pain in the butt to fix. They can all be fixable. Any mechanic worth their salt knows how things work today. Use the internet. I'm a member of various communities where everybody helps each other out. Like, I hate Jaguars. I'll work on them once in a while. I'll just go to my Jaguar guy and say, hey, look, I got this. What's that? And he'll say, oh, yeah, look under the left pillar of the radiator. You'll see that the wire is worn through because they made them too short. So, you know, when you share the information, it makes it easier to fix. Fritz Felix Severino says, Scotty, big fan from Asia. I'm tired of driving Asian cars. I'll be staying in California next year. I want to try to use European car like a Volvo 05 to 10 S60. What are your thoughts? Okay, the S60s were actually pretty decent cars if taken care of. And you said you're going to be here for 1 year. If you find a good one with relatively low mileage on it, go ahead. It could be a fun car to drive. But you're going to have to find a mechanic there, like me, that checks them out, because they can be endless money pits. If you brought me a Volvo, I would hook up my OTC scan tool. It's a very fancy scan tool. And within half an hour of pushing buttons and analyzing the data and all the information that's in the computer, I could tell you what shape the car's in. There's lots of guys that can do that. Now, you said, I guess you're going to be in California, but in California, you're going to have to pay a serious few bucks to get it checked out correctly. Do that and take my advice. Don't don't go to a Volvo shop to get it checked out, because they're going to say it's a good car because they're going to see money in their eyes. We can fix this thing and make a fortune if it's got problems. Find a guy who knows how to work on them, but isn't just a Volvo specialist, because he's got a vested interest in making money off of you. Joe Wynn says, hi Scotty, how can you check the timing belt of a Lexus 2003 GS 430 without removing the timing cover? You got to take at least part of it off to look at it physically. But as a mechanic myself, I just get a timing light and I hook it up and I look at the timing. And if you don't have a timing light, or don't know how to operate one, get a regular scan tool. It shows the ignition timing, and just start it up and let it run. And when it's idling, the timing should be stable at the right degree. If you see it keeps going -6, -8, -10, -6, that means it's stretched and it's off. You don't have to take anything about that. That's the good thing about a modern scan tool. You can get a lot of data without having to do any work at all, as long as it plugs in and interfaces with the system. And the Lexuses, they always do. Liam Welch says, Scotty, I got an 07 Civic, 100,000 miles. The steering wheel shakes when I press on the brakes harder. What could it be? Change your front brake rotors and change your brake pads. That should fix the whole problem. When the rotors are warped, they're spinning, especially at high speeds. When you hit the brakes, they're warped, they go like this, but only a few thousandths of an inch. I'm exaggerating. But at 60 miles an hour, that's spinning fast, and it makes it shake. You also want to check the front end, because front end's worn, you know, there could be a problem. Jack it up, pull on the wheels. You pull them like this, and there's no play on each side, and the ball joints and tie rod's okay, and all you need is rotors and pads. And it's a Civic. You don't have to go to the dealer and buy expensive stuff. You go to AutoZone, Pep Boys, any of those places, and you can buy rotors and pads there that will work perfectly fine on a Honda. Hang on, CarMedia says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2007 Mazda 3 with 130,000 miles, garage kept with one owner? It's an 07. They were still a little iffy with their transmissions. It's old, it's got mileage on it, might be beautiful. If you can get it cheap, it could be a fun car. But you'd want a guy like me to check it out, and of course you'd want to road test it. If the transmission has any type of problems at all, backing up highway speeds, cornering and shifting and clunking, don't buy it, because it's not worth it. But if it shifts and runs okay and you get a good price, it could be a good car to drive around for a while. Just don't overpay. It's an old car, doesn't matter it's one owner, it's still, you know, just a little bitty car. You get a good price, it could be a great knock-around car that might last you for years, but you got to check that transmission out. That's the weakest point. Saturn Motor Sales of America says, hey Scotty, what do you think of the 2024 Hummer EV SUV? Well, how can I think about something that doesn't exist yet? It's GM, and they got some radical battery technology. I'll give them that. Now, the ones that are coming out first, 2024 is going to be their cheapest model. They've already sold out all the ones that they haven't built yet, of the fancy ones that are supposed to come out later this year, but they're $100-something thousand. Now, if you don't mind that kind of money for an electric vehicle, you know, I've talked about electric vehicles till the cows come home, about, hey, there's no infrastructure for it yet and all that. But if you got that kind of money, you want a big electric vehicle, you know, go ahead, but listen to Scotty. Always wait after a few years to see if they held up. They might be complete lemons, and then 3-4 years later, you find out they're falling apart and they're worth nothing, because the resale values of electric vehicles, bleh. I had a guy in Houston, he bought one of those Model S high-end Teslas. He bought it with 15,000 miles for less than 50 grand, and the original guy paid 126 for it. So they have no resale value. I'd wait if I were you. Brian Hickey says, what do you think of a 67 Chevy K20 with a 350 paired with a 4-speed manual? Oh, great vehicles. Back in the 60s, GM made great products. That's a great truck. Hopefully it's not all rusted out. I mean, hopefully you're in Texas, Oklahoma, California, Arizona, New Mexico, where they don't rust. Because if it's not rusted, man, that's a collector's item. Those things are fun to drive. They're gonna last forever. You can just keep fixing it and fixing it and fixing it. They don't make them like they used to. Sure, it's a gas hog, but what the heck? It runs and runs and runs, and really, if the frame and everything isn't rotting away on it, that's a collector's item. I love those old trucks. Fatman says, Scotty's a bad control arm, an easy fix. All right, the control arm just sits there, and you just have to take it off, put another one on. The only problem is breaking it loose. So you just need to get a control arm removal tool where you put it on, you tighten it up, and it pops off. Now, they don't cost all that much, but if you go to any of the AutoZones, O'Reilly, big auto parts stores, Pep Boys, they generally will loan you the tools free. You buy the part from them, the control arm, you can just pop it off and put it on. You need the tool. It's very hard to do with a hammer smashing it. You need the tool to pop it off. But like I said, a lot of them will loan you one if you want to buy one. They aren't all that expensive. Kai says, are you interested in aviation? I'm interested in all kinds of things. My son loved it. He was 101st Airborne flying around in helicopters. I'm not a fan of small, single engine airplanes. They seem to crash too much. We took one when we were in Alaska. One of those bush pilots flew us around. Oh man, I grabbed that wing and it was like a beer can. The aluminum was so thin, I thought it was aluminum siding for a house. The guy knew what he was doing. He knew it to fly. But anyway, when he dropped that thing down when we hit a cold front, whew, my stomach went up my throat. My wife thought it was funny. She was laughing. But I didn't particularly like it, so I'm going to keep my feet on the ground, probably. I remember my grandfather, who taught me how to fix cars. He never flew in a plane. He said, I'm not going to get on anything if I can't have my feet on the ground. To which I said, hey, your feet are on the ground in your Buick. You got 4 tires. But I knew what he was talking about. He never did go in an airplane his whole life, though. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.